Okay, guys, moving forward as of today, it is required that you have a buyer broker agreement signed by a client if you are to show them properties. So it is a requirement. Before you show any properties, you need to have either the BBRC signed, which is the full buyer broker agreement, or you need to utilize this short form buyer broker agreement, which is the PSRA, which is used for 3 properties or less. And if you have 4 properties or if you have 5 properties, you can there's a workaround here, which I'm going to show you to where you can add more than the 3 properties, but you can see on the top of the document, it is giving you just 3 slots here for you to be able to put addresses in. So let's say you get a call from a client, they want to just look at a couple properties and you don't want to enter into a formal full-on buyer broker agreement, you can propose this light version, which allows you to be compliant with the settlement agreement by having all the elements you need in order to show the property without having to go with the full-blown document. So you may find this to be a little easier. The regular BBRC is a 5-page document. This is a 3-page document. So it's considered to be kind of a light version. So this basically gives you the right to show property. You would list the 3 properties. You can see here I put, because I have 5 properties to show, a full list on attached Exhibit A. So you would create an addendum to the PSRA, and then you could just put all of those properties on the document. Now, do not show a property that isn't on this list, okay? Because you will be considered in violation and could have repercussions as a result of that. So what the document does, it gives you the right to represent them on these specific properties. And you can tell the client that, hey, this is specifically just for these 3 properties. It gives the terms of the representation. So the representation period, you know that the BBRC has has a total of 3 months is the maximum for the BBRC. On this document, it's a maximum of 30 days. So you would list the time period. It could be just for that day that it applies. But in this particular case, I would probably say you would make it effective for a 30-day period. Talks about the compensation as it does in the BBRC. So you would list whatever your fee is. And then it tells the buyer that, hey, listen, if I'm paid by the seller, which is typically what happens, it's going to offset that obligation that you have for me. The cancellation is effective immediately because this is inherently, it's a non-exclusive agreement. It is not an exclusive agreement. And we know that the non-exclusive agreements are canceled within immediately. They're able to be canceled immediately. And then other terms would be anything else that you might feel that you need to add into that matrix. So you can see it's very simple, very easy. It goes on to give an advisory regarding commissions, that they're negotiable. The broker right to compensation. It talks about the fact it's non-exclusive. It explains what broker involvement is. So, Mr. Buyer, if I do any of these things, show you the property and whatnot, please be sure and be aware that there is an obligation that I should get paid as a result of that. And then timing of compensation authorizes that the payment be made through escrow, talks about if a transaction is completed. Paragraph D is talking about it being paid through escrow. Paragraph E explains and reiterates that if you're paid and you're representing the seller in the transaction, those payments being paid for the seller side is not offsetting their obligation. So it makes it clear to them that it's 2 separate things. And then goes on to explain what if there is less than the amount negotiated in the contract that is owed, what happens? Okay, in other words, how do we go about and what happens as far as their obligation to have to pay that additional brokerage? The boilerplate on cancellation goes on to say, you'll notice in the BBRC, there is an AD that's attached to the document. When you pull this up, there is no AD. And what it says is that the broker will provide you or provide the prospective buyer with an AD, disclosure regarding agency relationship, as soon as practicable prior to writing an offer. So you're kind of back in the same boat. For the purposes of getting going and being in compliance with the settlement, having a written agreement, this is satisfactory. You don't have to have any of the other addenda or paperwork that is associated with it. There's a paragraph in there talking about dual agency, that is allowed. Talks about what the broker's authorizations and obligations are. What are we obligated to do? Basically diligently represent the purchaser. And then what are the buyer's obligations? Goes on to talk about open house without representation, letting the buyer know that they are not required to sign a representation agreement just to see the property, but if they want to go out and view and look at properties, then this document would be required. And it also goes on to disclose that, hey, if you've already signed representation agreements, make sure you inform the broker of that. What is the agreement? Was it exclusive? What is non-exclusive? What area was it for? Take a look at, or it basically tells them to make sure that they advise the other broker what's going on. There's a signature page for both the buyer and the agent. So you may find that this is a simplified version for you just for a couple properties. If you're going to go out and show really more than 3, but up to 5 with the addendum, then this is fine. Otherwise, you need to make sure that you just enter into a standard normal buyer broker agreement. Please see me if you have any questions or if any of this is unclear for you. I hope this is helpful.